Spring has sprung, so it's the perfect time to make these really simple fabric flowers. You can use them to make hair decorations, garlands, or sew them onto your clothes for a quick wardrobe update. They'd be really good for covering stains. To get started, you'll need an old t-shirt, some fabric, buttons, a circular object to draw around, 3 to 4 inches in diameter is perfect, a pen, a hand sewing needle, thread to match your fabric, a pair of sharp scissors or fabric scissors, a hair clip, and some glue if you want to make your flowers into hair decorations. You should also have an iron and ironing board to hand. First, we're going to make a headband using our old t-shirt. Take your t-shirt and measure up the side seam, double the width you'd like your finished headband to be. I want mine to be about 4 centimetres, so I cut an 8 centimetre strip of fabric off the bottom. You could also cut away the thicker hem of the t-shirt if you like, but I left mine on as I like the stiffness it gives. Before you sew the headband, you need to cut the fabric to the size of our head. You can measure this by wrapping the fabric round your head and pinning or holding where the two ends meet. Then snip the excess away, leaving 1 centimetre on each side for your seam allowance. We're now going to sew these two ends together by hand, or if you want to, you can use a zigzag stitch on a sewing machine. Line both the edges up with the right sides, that's the outside, of the fabric together. Thread up your needle and thread and start sewing at the edge of the fabric. Secure your stitch by making a loop knot with your thread. Put the needle through the fabric and out the other side, but don't pull it all the way through. Leave a small loop of thread like I've done here. Now put your needle through the loop and pull it tight. Do this another couple of times and this should be secure enough. Now sew a running stitch from one end of the fabric to the other, making sure to sew through both layers and sewing about 1 centimetre from the edge. A running stitch is made by pushing your needle into the fabric and then back out the other side, moving forward a little and then pushing the needle back through the fabric from the back to the front in the same manner. This forms a row of stitches in a straight line, which is called a running stitch. Secure your thread at the end again by tying a loop knot. Snip your threads and now you have a very simple headband. Put this to one side while we move on to make our fabric scrap flowers. First of all, we need to cut some circles. I'm using a mug as my guide. Draw around it 6 times and then carefully cut these out. Next, we're going to iron our circles into quarters. This will form the petal-like shape of our flowers. Fold each circle in half. Iron it in place and then in half again like I'm doing here. Hold the iron down for a few seconds so that they keep their shape. You should now have 6 folded pieces like this. Thread up your needle and knot the end. You can double your thread for extra durability. Now take each of your fabric petals and sew along the bottom edge with a running stitch. Make sure to sew through all layers and leave a tail of around 10 centimetre at the end of the thread. If you use wool instead of thread and knot after each petal is sewn on, this could make a lovely garland or necklace as it is. Now that you've sewn all your petals on, take both ends of the thread and tie into a knot, pulling tightly so that your petals curl round to form the shape of a flower. Tie a double knot here, as you don't want it coming loose, but don't snip the end with your needle on it as we're still going to use it. Now take a button. I chose this oversized one as it hides all the raw edges of my petals underneath. Using your needle and thread, sew the button onto the front of your flower. Work your way in and out a few times, securing the thread by sewing through the raw edges of the flower as you go. When you're done, remember to secure your thread by tying another loop knot on the back of the flower, but don't snip your thread yet as we'll use it to sew onto our headband. Before we start to sew, we need to fold our headband in half to give it a bit more stability. Then grab your flower with your needle and push the needle into your headband at the position you'd like your flower to sit. I've made sure that the seam of my headband is at the back and positioned my flower slightly off centre. Push your needle through from the front to the back of the headband and secure it, again using a loop knot. Now, using the same process as before, sew your flower onto the headband using the button as an anchor. Once you've gone from back to front a few times and it feels secure enough, secure your threads on the back using a loop knot. Snip the ends of the thread and you're done. If you'd like to make a hair clip, it's a really simple process. Cut a small circle of fabric from your leftover scraps and glue this to the back of your flower. This will provide a bit of extra stability. Once that's dry, use some more glue to stick the back of your flower to a plain hair clip. You've probably got one of these lying around the house somewhere. And there you have it, some really simple springtime decorations. You can experiment using different types of fabrics or different sizes of petal to make them really unique. And please show us your work by tagging us on social media. We love to see your ideas.